Hi everyone, and I am here to talk about George Eliot. I had plans to rank her books, and I'm realizing that I feel a lot more complicated about her books than I realized. Um, I'm going to have trouble ranking them. Basically, I do know kind of my bottom two that I have on the list. Okay, so at the bottom, and I know a lot of people really like this one, but is Silas Marner. And I think it's because this is the one that I connected the least with. And I didn't enjoy it until I was about halfway through. And at that point, you have so little of the plot left. And I really don't remember it much. It just didn't stick with me. I like the notion of it because it has charming kind of fairy tale elements to it. But I don't know how much George Eliot excels at charm. There is really this aching that her books have, and I think that is what really kind of has the staying power in them. So that one to me, it just didn't stay with me that much. I have the least to say about it. Maybe at some point I will reread it. I'm not motivated at any point in the near future, but at some point I will. But I will say, actually, let's include From Scenes of Clerical Life in there, then ranked on the bottom are Mr. Gilfil's Love Story and The Sad Fortunes of the Reverend Amos Barton. The Sad Fortunes of the Reverend Amos Barton, I did enjoy more than Mr. Gilfil's Love Story. But those were both kind of, she was just starting out. And I mean, when I think about her later books, it's just astounding the power that she has in her writing. Okay, then moving on to, how do I want to do this? Okay, yes. The Mill on the Floss. It is down there. And this is one that I think is a lot more well known from George Eliot. And I did write a little short Instagram post about this. I did enjoy this more the second time around. I reread it during, I think it was the second Victober. Was it the second or the first? Now I honestly can't remember, but it didn't really make much of a mark on me then. But the second time around, I read this over the course of April and May, and I did definitely enjoy it more. It made more of an impression on me. The scenes with Maggie, I found Maggie such a moving character, and I had so much empathy towards her, and I wanted her to be happy so badly. And when people didn't want her to be happy, it made me so sad. And when I just felt like Maggie was in the wrong book. There are many chapters that are Maggie's aunts and uncles talking and just passing the time of day. And because of the dialect in those chapters, I found it really, really hard to read and to pay attention because it felt so hard to follow along. And on top of that, Maggie's brother Tom was such a frustrating character to me. He just ruins the book at points. And it's just like he has no concept of kindness towards his sister. She is just this kind of the pebble in his shoe, and she just makes everything worse. And he just is so lacking in empathy. And so I'm so devastated on Maggie's behalf. And on top of that, I don't necessarily mind when a book has a sad ending, but the sad ending just feels so abrupt. And it just feels pretty unrelated. And I think also I am a bit biased in that I have read Moorland Cottage, which I know Katie from Books and Things really liked Moorland Cottage so much more than The Mill on the Floss. Katie does not really enjoy George Eliot either, but I do think I really liked Moorland Cottage. So now it's having me want to go back to Moorland Cottage. Maybe that could be a nice summer audiobook to listen to. So I do like that. This time around, the second time, it's made me think a lot more about it. I pondered the characters more. Maybe part of it is that it was the Literary Parlor book club pick, so we did have a book discussion for it. But it just wasn't quite enough. And I really wish Maggie had just been in a different book. So, better than the first time that I read it. And I wouldn't say no to maybe in 10 years or so, reading it again, coming back to it. And then the next one is going to be Felix Holt, The Radical. And I think the reasons why this is lower down in the ranking is I really did enjoy the chapters that I enjoyed, but this is essentially a political novel. And what is happening? It's not the Reform Act, because I think that's in Middlemarch. There is, yes, it's not saying what is happening then. But there is a lot of political tension happening in the town at this time that the book is set. There's a lot of political discussion. Even if I knew all of the ins and outs, if it was some modern day book and I really knew about the politics of that time, I would not be interested in the least. So you can see how then I just don't feel interested in a Victorian novel that is essentially political. I think it just feels too topical for fiction to me as a reader. And I think it could just be put out into the world better as an essay. But the character of Esther Lyon I really liked, and I was fascinated by her as a character. So again, it was just there were too many chapters that were the kind of chapter that I didn't enjoy, and it hasn't stayed with me as much as Mill on the Floss. So I did enjoy it though, and I was really happy to continue reading it. But I definitely kind of skim read the political chapters because I just know myself as a reader, and if people judge me for skimming those chapters, then so be it. Then I don't want to leave out Janet's repentance from Scenes of Clerical Life. This to me, I loved this. And I've said before, it's Tennant of Wildfell Hall meets Cranford, and I really think a lot of people who haven't enjoyed other things by George Eliot could probably enjoy Janet's Repentance. So I implore you, please give Janet's Repentance a try. I think you might really enjoy it. Okay, then we move to, I do have a few defined, parts of the ranking. So then next up is Adam Bede. And this one to me was when I finally realized oh wow, I really love George Eliot. I will link down below my relationship with George Eliot video where you can see kind of the evolution of how I came to slowly but surely be won over by George Eliot. This plot is based on true events, things that George Eliot was told by one of her, a cousin or an aunt, things that she witnessed and things that happened. So it's a very harrowing situation that is written about here, and it's written about in a very Victorian way where you aren't given many details, and then all of a sudden you find out certain things and go, what? Did I miss something? Was there a chapter that was taken out of here? But you're really, you are being, she makes some executive decisions as an author where you're being shared very specific information up to a certain point in the novel, and then she shares a lot with you. I found this just really a page turner as far as Victorian novels go. So it really does keep moving. There's not a lot of lingering, but it's still written with her beautiful, beautiful prose. And I love the lead character of Adam. I find the characters of Dinah and Hetty, they're a bit written as foils of one another. Their relationship, their dynamic, fascinating. I also adore the character of Dinah. I think some people might think she's a bit too good, but I just find her really noble and something to aspire to. And I love Dinah as a character. So Adam and Dinah are two real highlights of this book for me. There are the chapters where there are characters speaking in dialect, but for some reason, in the Mill on the Floss, where it feels more daunting, the dialect in this, maybe she got better at writing dialect, or maybe it's a different kind of dialect. Something about it, I don't know. I find it a lot more easy to read along with. So yes, this one is really, it feels the most like a sensation novel, I'd say, out of all her novels. Yes, I really, really enjoyed this. Okay, now I think for the final three, I have tied Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda and Romola, and I think they are all just going to be top three because I think Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda are just compared to Romola it's like apples and oranges. They're not the same thing at all. This feels so vastly different from, any book I've ever read, let alone any George Eliot book that I've ever read. And it's one of those that it was so challenging as I was reading it. I wouldn't have said I'm having fun while I'm reading this, but the way that this book has haunted me, is unlike any other reading experience that I've had. And it's one of these books that I felt I was just dipping my toes into it the first time that I read it. It deserves for me to read it. I really would love to read it a total of 10 times. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I feel like this novel will just pay you back tenfold each time that you read it. There is a fair amount of church politics involving Savonarola. It is, what century is it in Florence? Renaissance Florence. It doesn't say the specific year, but Renaissance Florence. There are things to do with the Medici family. And this is such a like academia novel. Romola, the main character, is just, I find her so fascinating. She, to me, is the most fascinating out of the female characters in any of George Eliot's books. This was George Eliot's favorite out of her novels. And several of the portions in here just move me to tears. And visually, I can still picture them. And it's very tragic. And there are some extremely selfish characters in this. And you see the ripple effects of the selfish acts that they commit, and how that really affects everyone around them. And so this novel, it just builds and builds on those actions. And but it does not end without hope. So you definitely have to buckle up for an emotional ride with this one and really take your time with it. What is interesting is that even though this is Eliot's favorite of her novels, at the beginning of the chapters, I just noticed, there is not an epigraph. And in the Middlemarch chapters, I'm pretty sure, let's double check this. Middlemarch has an epigraph at the beginning of every one, and Daniel Deronda has an epigraph at the beginning of every one. And the epigraph is kind of a key to what happens in each chapter. If you figure out what the epigraph means, you can kind of get a hint about what is going to happen in it. So this is just too different from Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda. Now, Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda, I have to say that the one that I have more fun while I'm reading it is Daniel Deronda, because the characters are just really lively, and the Merrick family is a real highlight to me. They bring a real warmth to the book, and she doesn't always have warmth in her books. And I just find this the whole concept of discussing Judaism experienced in Victorian England really fascinating. I know that George Eliot herself was not Jewish, but this is still spoken about. The Perlman Institute, which is a Jewish higher education, they discuss, they have a Daniel Deronda course. So it's something that is still studied today. And finding your place in this world, and I love the character of Daniel. Gwendolyn also, I love how complicated she is, and I love how she can bring out such fierce reactions out of readers. And I just admire Eliot's skill. She's not really this character that I aspire to be like, but I love how much of a reaction she gets out of me as I'm reading about her. And then that leaves Middlemarch. And Middlemarch, I think, is the one that I look back on the most fondly. This is one that you just grow in love with after you have finished it. And this is the one that I've read the most. This is the one that I've read 3 times. Daniel Deronda has been twice. Adam Bede, Romola just once. Felix Holt I only read this January. And then Adam Bede twice, and The Mill on the Floss twice. But Middlemarch 3 times, because when I feel like these characters stand up to the most scrutiny best. And there is something about watching characters who feel so real and flesh and blood go into adulthood with all of their expectations about how they think the world will be, or some of the characters are middle-aged, and seeing how they feel that the earlier part of their life went. And it is so about kind of what you do when you're disappointed with life And it feels so relatable and so human. And I love that about it. Whereas I do think her other books have poignant observations on humanity. This one feels like the easiest to be like, okay, I can take this observation and this observation for my life today. The other ones, you can do that too, but something about this just really sits with me. So I don't know, maybe as I'm talking about it, Middlemarch might be my favorite. It's just the more I think about it, the more I grow and love for it. And yeah, maybe it is my favorite now that I'm talking about it. It's the one that I just like, oh, it just, my cup runneth over whenever I speak about it. Now, there is a book that's all about someone experiencing Middlemarch, and that is My Life in Middlemarch by Rebecca Mead. But I really do struggle with books about books and topical nonfiction. I'm scared to try it because if I haven't tried it yet, then I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. But if I try it and don't enjoy it, then it will be disappointing. So that is my rambly sort of ranking of George Eliot's novels. Please, please, please try George Eliot. I think she's really worth your time. And I'm so grateful that I have read her books. I don't know what I will reread next. I'm not certain. Yeah, so thank you as always for watching, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.